It's sponsored by the South Coast Interfaith Council, and this is a time we share together to meet and talk with people who are truly courageous, meeting the challenges of the day with creativity and hope. My name is Marietta Fong, and I'm a member of the board of the council, and I belong to the Rolling Hills United Methodist Church here in the South Bay of the Los Angeles area. We hope you find these conversations helpful and inspirational. Today, we're talking with Kalani Caldwell, a teacher at Long Beach Poly High School. So we'll hear a bit more about Kalani in a few minutes, but first let's talk about Zooming and what we might try to do to have a good Zoom experience. I am going to share my screen, I hope. Nope, can't do it because I'm not the host. So we'll just talk about what it's like to Zoom. We're going to all be muted. And while we're mute, you may have a question or two that you want to ask. So just type that question in the chat box and type it addressed to me or to everyone. And if you feel like you need to say your question out loud and you want to participate in the conversation, there's a little raise your hand icon, which is over in the participants screen that you might be able to find. And since we're recording, your video will show perhaps if you're on the gallery view, and you might want to have a light in front instead of a light behind you so that it shows up well. But have some patience with us because we're not professionals and we're still learning some of this. That's how we Zoom. So our program's going to last about 45 minutes and with some general questions and conversation at the beginning. And then during the Q&A section near the end, you'll have an opportunity to send questions to me via the chat box. Located at the bottom of the screen as we usually discuss, and so I can share those with Kalani. Our guest today is Kalani Caldwell. She is not only a physical education and yoga teacher and the girls' varsity swim coach, but she is also the coordinator of something called AVID, and we're going to hear more about that. She's been a teacher and a coach at Long Beach Poly High School. I can't believe this. It says that she's been there for 31 years.
Yep.
She was a counselor for 16 years, and she's currently teaching those classes. And AVID is a college prep class for the underserved population, but we'll hear more about that from Kalani because that's a fascinating program. She's very active in the local aquatics world, and she has a daughter who's 20 years old attending McAllister College in Minnesota. So Kalani, can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to your current spot at Long Beach Poly High and the AVID coordinator?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me today. I am a Long Beach local, so went through all the Long Beach schools, and even though I didn't plan on being a teacher, I saw all the struggles my mom went through as a teacher, with all the protests and underfunding and all that stuff. And I always said, I'll never be a teacher. And voila, here I am being a teacher. So, and of course, a lot of the struggles that she went through, we are still going through today. I have been at Poly for 31 years, like you said. And I started out as a PE teacher. And then one of our principals, we had an opening in counseling, and he asked if I was interested in holding down the fort going into counseling. And I thought, well, that would be good. I really don't want to be an old, wrinkly PE teacher anyway. So it'd be good to be out of the sun for a little bit. And I ended up getting my master's in educational counseling so that I could stay in that position because I really liked it. And I was in that position for 16 years. There was a lot of budget cuts and things happened. And about 4 years ago, I decided to go back into the classroom and actually like it. I feel like I can, as a counselor, it was wonderful, but I had a caseload of about 750. So I couldn't really get to know a lot of the kids. I got to know the kids that were in trouble or had attendance issues, you know, so the really needy ones. And then I knew the like straight A kids that I would give all the awards to. But I wouldn't know the kids in the middle at all. And that's a big chunk. So like out of all my kids, there's probably 400 that I really like didn't ever get to know. But going back in the classroom, I feel like I can really make more of a difference and have that connection, which is what I went into the education for to begin with.
And I know you do a lot of that in the AVID program, which stands for Advancement via Individual Determination.
Correct.
So can you
when I went into counseling is actually how I found out about AVID. When I went into counseling, I realized that there was a lot of, sorry, I'm trying to get a fan on me. I just got really hot. A lot of disparity in what was being offered on campus, which I didn't know. I was in physical education. I just did my thing, taught the kids that were in my class. Well, come to find out, if you weren't in the magnet program, you weren't allowed to take the AP or honors classes. There were no honors classes for the regular ed students. And I was like, what? This is appalling. Like, I knew my kids were smart. They just didn't have the opportunity to showcase that. And so I found out about this program called AVID. They had, LA County had like a meeting of like people come hear about AVID and see if it's, you know, the right fit for your school. So I went along with the English teacher that I worked closely with, and we thought, oh my gosh, this is it. This is what we need to level the playing field, to make sure that all the students have equal opportunity to the AP courses and advancement courses and everything that you need to go to college. Because another thing that I found out as a counselor in my group of students that I was attended to, they weren't really given a lot of college information. So it's almost like they were just wrote off. You know what I mean? Like they're just going to go to a junior college, a trade school, blah, blah, blah. Like they weren't even told about college. And because these are first generation, low income minority students, they don't have anybody at home tell them about it either. So they're just following in line and not really knowing what is out there and what opportunities they could have. So in 2003, I got the principal on board and she said, yes, let's get AVID to our campus. So what it is, it's an elective. So the kids have to choose to take it, you know, instead of taking an art class or auto mechanic or, you know, an elective class. And it's, so they would have it every day. And in that we do something called WICOR, W-I-C-O-R. So writing, organization, collaboration, inquiry, and rigor. Those are the things that we cover. We have guest speakers come in. We take the kids on field trips so that they can actually put their feet on college campuses and see what it's like. Everything is geared kind of on the secret language of college that unless you have someone that's gone before, you don't know it.
Now that's been going on for 17 years now. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, at Poly, and it started from a woman named Catherine Swanson in San Diego, because she had students right there on the border in San Diego that the same thing. They were not given the opportunity. They were just assumed that they were not college bound and et cetera. So
what kind of results do you see? And
I see amazing results, amazing results. So I just finished a senior class. I had 2 senior classes. So I had about 65 kids, a total, 65 seniors. I have kids going to Humboldt, San Diego State, UC Merced, a lot of Long Beach States, because Long Beach State gives our kids a really good financial aid package and they can live at home. So that saves them a lot of money. GCU is a big one that gives our kids a lot of financial aid. That's Grand Canyon University. But basically all up and down the coast. I've sent them to Oregon. A lot of my kids go to historically Black colleges. So we've had them at Tuskegee. I have a student at Tuskegee right now. I have one that graduated from Tuskegee, Morehouse, Spelman. I could go on and on. So they're kind of far and wide, and it's really exciting. And it's exciting when they thank you because they never thought that they would have that opportunity before. Or their counselor told them, hey, what community college do you want to go to? And then they come into AVID and we show them all the 3,000 different colleges that are out there. Hey, get good grades, take these level classes, get involved in school activities, and you have just as much right to go to these colleges as anybody else does. And they're like, eyes wide open.
And how do they do when they get there? Do you hear from them after they're gone and when they come back home for vacation and such? And after what's their graduation rate? I mean, I don't want to go too far off into this, but I'm just really curious as to how they do.
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't come prepared with the data for that, but they do follow the kids. AVID as a whole tries to track the kids as they go into college so we can see. But the students that were in AVID that go on to college have a higher staying rate than a student that is not in AVID. Because, you know, just because you go doesn't mean you return for your second year.
Yeah.
And through AVID, we give them the tools to advocate for themselves, to ask the right questions, to seek out help on campus so that they are more likely to push through when an obstacle comes towards them. I would say that the biggest thing that keeps them from maybe continuing would be financial. Mm-hmm. So,
well, that's good to know. You know.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. And they come back every year. I have an alumni panel, and they come back and they talk to the current kids about, you know, and the kids can ask them any questions about college. And then
super. Well, you know, I know we have a lot of things that we could just talk about for ages, but we want to get into the current situation and ask you about your students and the pandemic, and what do you hear them saying about the situation? What are their major concerns and fears?
They're sad, first of all. They're very sad. You know, they've been lucky in their lifetime that this is really the first kind of big thing that's ruffled their feathers. And, you know, I hate to say it, but because of that, they're not necessarily prepared because they've had a pretty darn easy life. So we're learning. We're doing a lot of socio-emotional learning. Sometimes the curriculum has to set aside for a second because we need to just deal with how you're doing and giving them life skills that they can, you know, get through everyday life right now.
Wow.
It was one thing for COVID to happen, right? And then for a lot of my kids, I didn't even get to say goodbye to them because we're on a block schedule. So we see our kids every other day. And so I saw my kids on Thursday, my even day kids. I figured I'd see them again, right? Well, Friday, we came to school, and at 10 o'clock, we got a message that was it. Pack up. At the end of the school day, we're done. So I only got to say goodbye to the kids I had that day. And we had, you know, no preparation of what was going to happen on online learning. The teachers didn't have preparation. The kids didn't have preparation. It was a gigantic learning curve.
So pop, you were in a new world all of a sudden.
Yep.
But you're still connected. You still get to talk with them, communicate with them back and forth. Have you had situations where you can't because they don't have access to a computer?
I lost a lot of kids. I'll have to tell you that. And my EL kids and my special ed kids, I lost them.
Oh.
You know, for one reason or another, they were the chunk of kids that were not attending my Zoom classes. So like for my swim team, I have like 72 girls on my swim team. I would have like 63 of them show up for Zoom because they're the magnet kids. Okay. But then I'd have my PE class and I have 57 in my PE class, and I'd be lucky to have 23 kids show up for Zoom. And, you know, we tried calling them. You know, email doesn't work because if email worked, they would have been on Zoom. So whatever the reason is at home, you know, I'd say we lost a good 50% of that population.
Wow. Do you hear?
And so my main concern is that this situation, should we not return in the fall, we really have to address the gap that is going to be even larger now between the haves and the have-nots. Because my swimmers and the PACE kids, which is the magnet program, they're going to attend and they're going to get their education. It's not going to be what they wanted, but they'll be at every class. And like my 4 little girls that made that coloring book, you know, they're the go-getters. They're going to do it. But what are we going to do about all these kids that we already lost in the spring? How are we going to get them back on board? How are we going to assure that they have, you know, email or a network, that they have enough laptops in their house? They also don't have anybody at home that can help them. So a lot of my AVID kids, the majority of my AVID kids, parents are either from Pakistan or Mexico or Cambodia, mostly. So they don't really use technology, interestingly enough, so they're just coming over and, you know, trying to make a better life for their kids. But their kids are the ones that, if I'll say, hey, your parent has to have an email address, they make the email address for their parent. Yeah. And then, you know, then they have to be there when their parent checks the email because they don't know how to do that. So I'm just really afraid that this situation is going to widen the gap.
So let's ask, it's segue sort of to next fall, or at least when school opens up again, in whatever way it does. What are some of the possible plans for the school year ahead? I think you mentioned when we were chatting something about plan A,
B, and C. Yeah. Yeah. And I don't, you know, so there might even be like a DEF by September, but right now there's 3, you know, there's go back with as much social distancing as possible. There's a hybrid, which they're talking about, which means that half the school would be like track A and half would be on track B, so that only half amount of kids would be on campus at a time to help with, because, you know, Long Beach schools are big. Like that whole going back to school, you can't just make a blanket California statement, because, you know, there's counties that have very small schools and they can totally social distance and make it work. But you know, Long Beach Unified and in the South Bay, our schools are very big. And so this hybrid situation would be like Monday and Wednesday, track A would come to school, and then Tuesday and Thursday, track B would come to school, and then Friday is homework day and everybody just does online. So it's some kind of model like that. I've also heard at the middle school in Long Beach, they're talking about a morning afternoon. So you could be a morning and then at lunch you go home and then the afternoon group comes in. So it'd be like 8 to 11 and then 12 to 3, something like that. And they don't really want to have all the kids there at lunch at the same time, right? So then it would be like grab your lunch and go home type of thing.
Does that give the kids a meal who might not have a meal
Yes,
otherwise?
exactly. So the meal is very important, and we've been giving meals all through the quarantine. There's been free lunch. So like, even though they're at home, they just come. There's not every single school, but some of the schools have been designated in each area of Long Beach. They just drive through, they pick up their lunch, and they go. It's like a to-go thing.
Wow.
And they're actually doing it this summer too. So there are certain schools where you can go get a meal. And then C would be back to straight online.
If they did that, if they went back to straight online, are there any plans or discussions about making sure that kids have computers? For example, I heard one school district say that all the middle school kids were going to get Apple something, and all the upper levels were going to get a Google Chrome or something like that.
Yeah, so, and that's one thing that Long Beach did, is that we tried to give every student that needed one a Chromebook, because that's kind of what we have in Long Beach, are these Chromebooks, which are like, baby laptops. So when the quarantine started, they set up time, and a same thing, just drive through or walk through, sign out, pick up your Chromebook, go on home. So I think a lot of students got Chromebooks. But having a Chromebook in your hand does not guarantee you access to the internet. It does not guarantee that you have a place in your house. I mean, there's just really simple things that I have learned through AVID that my students don't even have, like a desk. They do their homework in their bedroom with their 3 other siblings, all sharing. They don't have a quiet space because they do have 3 to 5 other siblings that they are having to take care of, and dogs and whatever it is. And then if they're the older kid, their parent really needs them to help with the youngers. If you're going to be home, I need you to help, So there's so many things beyond just having that Chromebook in your hand that sometimes we don't even realize, because I have a desk, I have a place. But, even us trying to do Zoom, you'll be Zooming, and then the trash truck comes by, or the gardener from the neighbor is blowing, or, there's things that happen. So if you take our simple privileged life and, times 10, all the things that are hard for us is hard, times 10 for them.
Now, do you actually hear from some of the families, or is it mostly what you hear or don't hear from the students that tells you what's going on and what they're struggling with and what their experience is?
I hear from my swimmers' families. So those are the parents that reach out. That's another thing with the group of students that I work with, is that parent involvement is very low. And that could be language barrier. It could be that they're not comfortable talking to, a teacher. There's so many layers there of like what their education was. And then if they didn't have a good experience in education, then, they don't want to call the teacher. And
it's a different world.
It is. It really is. But from my swimmers, they're mostly concerned with the socio-emotional impact it's having on their kids. So about 8 weeks into quarantine, I had a volunteer. If you wanted to show up, I'm going to go to the bay and I'm going to swim. Me personally. Kalani is going to go for a swim. If anybody wants to come, you can come. And I had like 20 girls come. I had no idea that many girls would come. But their moms and their dads, the parents that came, were like, thank you so much. You don't know how much they needed this. They haven't seen another human in 8 weeks that was outside of our family. They were texting me, like the smiles on their faces said it all. And I really shouldn't have done that because I wasn't supposed to. but they really, really appreciated it because their kids are they're not getting out of their pajamas. That's like a main thing is they don't ever like get out of their pajamas. They've now turned into vampires. So the kids are staying up until like 2 to 4 a.m. and sleeping until like noon. So their clocks are completely off now. So that was a big thing. Another time I had a run and I invited some kids. I can't remember if it was a run. Something happened and it was like 9 o'clock and we were getting together. It was about 9 o'clock. And one of my girls told me, she said, this is the first time that I have gotten up in single digits since quarantine started.
Oh boy. Wow.
So that's just the typical of what they're doing.
Okay, here's a question. What do you hear, if anything, from your students about the current political situation? The policing and the protesting and all that, are they talking about it?
They are talking about it. The thing is that all the political unrest that has happened recently happened while we were in quarantine. So I haven't been able to have any, you know, like one-on-one or classroom conversations regarding it because we were quarantined and then school was out and then all this craziness happened. But I do follow a lot of my kids on social media and they are very concerned. A lot of them went to the protests and they wanted to see what they could do, right? They don't want to just sit back is the feeling that I got. You know, it's really easy to sit back and just post something on social media that, yes, I believe in Black Lives Matter. They want to take the next step, kind of put your money where your mouth is situation, which is, I think, one of the things that my 4 girls that made that COVID coloring book have now changed and added the Be the Change because they saw that there was a greater need that was coming out of quarantine, which was, what can we do to be the positive change in this world? And I think that a lot of our kids, like I was telling my own daughter who's 20, like, this is your guys' thing. You need to take it. You need to take it. You need to make the change. You guys have to vote. Like, this is going to be your world. We're old, you know, but if you want this world to be good in 20 years, you guys have to take charge.
I have to say that sometimes that's my greatest hope, is that this next generation that's coming along, I've been so inspired and encouraged by what I hear from them. It just makes me full of hope for the future. If there's any hope, that's a great part of where it is. And do you talk to them a little bit about what it might be like on a college campus when they head off to college, those who are headed in that direction, and what kind of challenges along those lines they might meet there, or how going to college and thinking about their future might help them change the world?
Most definitely. We talk about that a lot. I think that's something that gets them really excited is the independence. And, you know, one of the things I always push them to go out of Long Beach, because a lot of my kids that are in AVID, they don't even go to the beach, let alone, you know, leave the city of Long Beach. So if at all possible, I would like them to go to a college outside of Long Beach. But I totally understand if you get a full ride package for Long Beach State, you're going to go to Long Beach State. But I want them to get the full college experience where they get to speak their mind and they get to learn from like-minded individuals or even not like-minded, so that you can hear what all the different people, you know, have to say, and you can understand them and have an understanding of where they're coming from.
Oh, that's fabulous. Yeah.
So it's exciting.
Okay, I have a couple of questions in the chat room that we'll go to. And one of them is a quick question. It says, are the kids willing to wear masks?
Yes.
And how do they feel about that?
They're totally willing to wear masks. I haven't run across any kids that aren't. You know, maybe it's just my bubble. I don't know. You see it on the media all the time. But the kids understand, and the kids want to go back to school. So the kids want to do whatever is necessary to make that happen.
Safely.
Yes.
Wow. You know, Melia, I'm going to ask you to maybe unmute yourself because you've got a couple of questions in the chat box that I don't know if we've covered them all. Maybe you want to phrase them a little differently, but would you want to just ask your questions?
Yeah, sure. You know, one of the conversations is amidst my family, and it's the same thing, like you said, Kalani, all my nieces and nephews, they want to go back. I mean, they're just so tired of being at home, and, you know, it's just not what they want to do. But, you know,
it's hard to get excited about your education. Like, one of the things, like, you know, the social buy-in is so important.
Yeah.
So
Of course. But I know one of the concerns with the parents is that, you know, there's these guidelines that kind of, I guess, the state has put out or are maybe currently still working in terms of, if they go back to school, what does it mean? Like being 6 feet apart in the classrooms and stuff. And, you know, some of the kids, they have so many kids in a classroom. Like, is that feasible? Like, is that possible to do?
Well, that's, I think, part of the AB hybrid thing is that they were actually saying that, let's say you have a class of 35 kids can't fit in a classroom 6 feet apart. Right. So you would put that apart and you'd have like 17 and 18 or whatever in 2 classes next to each other. The teacher would be teaching in one room and videoing to the second room. And or, like we said, the 18 would come on one day and 17 would come on the other.
I see. Okay.
You see?
Yeah,
so that
split it. So yeah. My neighbors, they teach in West Covina, but they're high school teachers as well. And one day my husband was just talking with them, and they brought up an interesting point from the teacher's point of view. I guess some of their teachers, they might be diabetic, or they have some sort of like immunocompromised situation.
Most definitely.
And they are scared to go back and go into that. I mean, how do you guys, I mean, do you?
Yeah, no, we've had that discussion. We have teachers that, you know, in the exact same thing. I have friends who are really nervous about basically being then a frontline worker. Yeah. That's what is going to happen, right? Because we are going to have a lot of kids with a lot of germs that then go home to people that might have germs. So yeah, you're most definitely putting yourself at risk, and you have to be okay with that. I'm okay with that. I feel like I will keep my distance. I'll wear my mask. I'll wash my hands. I'll wash all the, you know, surfaces. I don't feel like I would put myself in a situation where I would feel uncomfortable. But if you are, like you said, have asthma, have friends that have asthma, or teachers, you know, or immunocompromised, or maybe you take care of a parent. So you don't want to, you know, take any risk with them. I'm hoping, although they don't, you know, include us in the conversation, what I'm hoping is that there's going to be a percentage of kids whose parents don't want them to come back to school because of, you know, the possible infection. So I'm hoping that those kids will then be aligned with teachers who can't or don't want to, and they would be the online classes.
Okay, right.
So that they would have that option. Okay, you're either back in school or you're online. And if you're not, you know, this is how you keep your job. Yeah. Basically, you're now the online teacher.
And when you say they, who are you referring to? When you said they, the school?
District? The school district, the superintendent, the high school, you know, there's like a whole
lineage.
People that are making the decisions, and they're listening to the governor and the CDC for their guidelines. But then, you know, like I said, I think that works fine for Long Beach because we're very big, but I think I would be frustrated if I worked in a very small rural area and still had to, you know, abide by the same guidelines, because I think that it would be just a little bit different. But yeah, basically they told us we had to take everything out of our classes that was personal. If it couldn't be wiped down, it couldn't stay in the class. So I had like flexible seating for AVID so that they could do collaboration. I have couches where kids can sit, comfortable chairs, and that's just kind of how we've evolved in the AVID class. all that had to go. So no more couches, no more fluffy seats. Everything has to be a wiped down surface. Teachers can't have tchotchkes on their desks this year because everything has to be wiped down. So it's going to be kind of sad. It has to be a sterile environment, which, you know, we pride ourselves on our bulletin boards and making the classroom a welcoming environment. And now it's just going to be stripped down. Yeah. So I don't know, when they say a sterile environment, it doesn't sound very inviting.
Well, one last question I had, and it's interesting, it goes into it this well. Last week we had a therapist, a child psychologist therapist, who came and talked about how this pandemic is, the effect that it's having on our little ones and our adolescents and kids. And, you know, and she was saying there's a lot of people, like you said, you know, they're depressed and they're struggling. I guess I just wonder, like, I mean, when these kids come back to school, it's not like, you know, how things impact you, it leaves an imprint in you, right? And I mean, we've been, like, we talk about it in our board meetings. I mean, sometimes, I mean, since March, we've been at home, you know, and I haven't seen Marietta in real life for months. And that has a psychological effect on you in terms of, that's your peer, that's your family. So do you think the school will have additional, I mean, when you told me you were a counselor, you had 700 kids. That's insane.
Totally insane.
Do you think they'll, like, address that these kids are going
I mean, we could only hope that they will see the need for more, like I said, the social emotional impact that it's going to have on the kids. But at the same time, the governor just keeps talking about the major budget cuts that are going to be happening to education due to the lack of funding now, because the money's going somewhere else. So they're actually, you know, we could get furlough days. You know, we're looking at cuts, which does not mean there'll be more of anything.
Well, that brings to mind some of the conversations, Melia, that we had with other helpers, so to speak. In other words, South Bay Children's Health Center and some of the places that offer mental health resources for kids, and making sure that people like the teachers who see the kids and who would know the ones that need help can connect to the resources that are not necessarily directly through the schools, but they're out there in the community and some of the nonprofit organizations that are trying to help.
So we have something called the Guidance Center that we can refer kids in Long Beach to. We're lucky at Poly High School to have something called the Care Center. So we have a teacher who is a trained counselor, actually, that he runs something called the Care Center. And it's a drop-in center where the kids can go in if they have grief, if they have anger issues, if they're having trouble at home. And that it's like a safe place for them. And then Mr. Gray, who runs that, he also does like a peer counseling class. So he teaches the kids how to then help their kids, you know, the kids.
Like,
so
look
really,
for their peers and take care of each other and make sure a friend needs help, that you help.
Yeah, because sometimes if I'm a kid, I don't really want to go talk to another adult, but I can go to the Care Center and talk to a 16 or 17-year-old that might understand me a little bit more. And it's all confidential unless they're going to hurt themselves or hurt someone else. So we're very lucky, and we almost lost funding on the Care Center 2 years ago, because it's just one of those things. They're like, oh, that money can go someplace else. But the school itself fought really hard, because we know our counselors are so overbooked that we don't have the time to give that extra piece. You know, if someone has the grief or the issues that they need, and Mr. Gray in the Care Center, that's all he does. So
we have one other question, and then we probably need to start wrapping it up. But Patty was asking if you and the other teachers are able to relay your ideas and your concerns and needs for the online learning and reopening the classrooms. Are they listening to you? Do you have an avenue where you can put your input in it?
They did do a couple surveys at the end of the school year. It came out from the district, and they sent them to the teachers, the parents, and the students. So they could all put, like, you know, did online working for you? If if we need to do online in the fall, would you do it? Or what, you know, so they were asking for kind of your input. But it was very basic. It wasn't like we could give a lot of detail ideas. But I think that the superintendent and the people that they do have a committee together. I know that if we were to send in our ideas, they would be listened to. I don't know that there is necessarily a forum, but I did see on Facebook that they're having July 8th, Long Beach Schools is having a forum where they're going to talk about not only the opening of school, but the budget. There were 3 items that they're going to be talking about next week on the 8th. So I'm going to make sure and be listening to what they have to say there.
Okay.
So I guess the answer is not really.
It's tough. It's tough. Yeah. And someone just reminded me, Carol did, that you told me, mentioned a little bit about the coloring book project, and I want to make sure we get that recorded into this conversation. So tell me again what your students did with the coloring books.
So for my swimmers, in their AP government class, there was a class where they were supposed to come up with a business plan, and then this happened, right? So they basically did their whole business plan on quarantine. And they decided to make it a COVID coloring book for kids where they could learn about what COVID is in a non-threatening manner, non-scary for little kids. And they made a coloring book. And then they thought they would, make a few of them. And then they said they would give their proceeds to some nonprofit agencies. Well, word got out and they've already made $2,500, and they're going to the second printing of this COVID coloring book. It's got an alligator on the front with a mask on. It's super cute. And then when they were in the middle of this COVID coloring book, the civil unrest happened, and they decided that they wanted to address that as well. So now they're making another coloring book about racism and acceptance of people. And so they changed the name of their coloring book company to Be the Change Coloring Book Company. And they're in the middle of making their second coloring book right now.
Wow. And they got some publicity for it too, didn't they? Didn't you?
Yes. Really good publicity. It's been picked up in our local newspaper, the Grunion, the Press Telegram, Washington Post. They were on Channel 4 last week. Let's see. And then just Wednesday was the Washington Post. And then today they got picked as the CIF Southern Section Heroes of the Week, which is looking for athletes that are out in the community doing good things. And so they were chosen of Heroes of the Week for what they're doing. So it's really exciting.
Congratulations. I mean, it's just so inspirational. It's just heartening. Like I said, it gives me hope to see what the teachers are doing with the kids and what the young generation is up to and where they're headed. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, Kalani, I can't thank you enough for what you've been sharing with us today. And I guess we'll wrap up just a little bit. Nelia, I'm going to ask you if you would like to talk about what we're going to do next week, and I'm going to try to share my screen so we can see that.
Great. Thank you so much, Kalani. This is great.
No,
I really appreciate your time and
thank you for having me.
And your commitment. Teachers are, some of the people that have made the most impact in my life are truly my teachers, and I always say that, and I make sure that they know that, because I think it, in many ways, it's a very thankless job, and it takes a lot of work. God bless you.
You get the 1 or 2 thank yous, it just means the world.
Yeah, because not everyone can do it. That's for sure. So you know, but thank you. So next week, we're going to continue the courageous conversations. And, you know, recently we've had a lot of talk about masks, right? That's one of the main things that are kind of help prevent the spread of the coronavirus and of this pandemic. And, you know, there's been differences of opinion. Some are really, yes, absolutely. Some are like, no, they feel it's it's taking away their right as a human being and things like that. So we really wanted to address kind of that issue and just talk to a group of people that we feel like needs to be heard as well. And these are the individuals who are immunocompromised during COVID-19, right? So what does it mean for them? And particularly the two individuals that we're talking to, they are cancer survivors. Marla just, in fact, finished her, last session of radiation and chemo and rang the bell and, all of that. But at the same time, she's still immunocompromised. And the same with Blaze, who's actually the husband of our office administrator, Cheryl. So we hope that you'll join us for that. So it's immunocompromised during COVID-19, reflections from cancer survivors. So a little bit of insight from them about what's going on and how they're coping with the pandemic that we're currently facing. And similarly, and I apologize, we didn't have the slide for this, but we say this in every program. We really want to continue this because I think it's been fantastic. We've had such great speakers and addressed so many important topics. But like any nonprofit right now, or really anyone, I think, not just nonprofit sector, but obviously financially, we got a bit hit, having to not have any programs and things like that. So we always encourage, if you're able to go to our website, there's a donate button, and anything that you're able to give would be muchly appreciated and will allow us to continue these conversations and these programs that we have.
Thank you, Amelia. Yeah, the website is office@scinterfaith.org, and that's the email. So that's the if you're going to RSVP, but the website is www.scinterfaith.org, right? Yeah. Okay. So share the word about the conversations. And if you know other people who would like to hear next week's topic, or go on to, for next week's topic, if you RSVP to office@scinterfaith.org, then you can get the link to the Zoom conversation. But then, as you know, we're recording these and putting them on YouTube.
That's right.
So last but not least, go to our website, donate, join us in these conversations, and also let us know if there's something that you would like to see or a person that you think would be helpful to talk to, because we're always open to suggestions, and we're especially grateful for your participation in these conversations with the questions and listening and sharing the information. So thank you so much, everyone, today. And Kalani, we can't thank you enough for all you do in the schools with the kids, and the AVID program is a fantastic program. So thanks again, everybody. Take care.
See you next week.
Until next time. Bye-bye.